Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. A couple of things that I wanted to talk about with Brian Kelly decision-making on Saturday. I did not expect LSU to defer after they won the toss. That was a very welcome surprise. Generally speaking, that has not been LSU's MO. Brian Kelly believes in taking the football, going right down the field, and says if you take the football and go down the field and score first, your chances of winning go up exponentially, analytically speaking. That's all well and good. I just want the ball to start the second half because that to me, it gives you the ability to set the tone in the second half. If you're down, you can trim into that lead. If you're up, you can build the lead. I want the ball to start the second half, and LSU did that, which I thought was great. As far as the fourth and goal to go situations that we continue to see LSU coming up short on, and it takes points off the scoreboard. I don't like these decisions to continue to try to go for it. We saw it against Florida State last year. We saw it against USC this year. We saw it again against South Carolina. LSU is a bad tight zone team. They're a bad short yardage team. And putting so much emphasis on that part of the game, to me, is not good business, and they've paid for it dearly in a couple of these games early on. So we'll see if they either one improve upon that, or two decide they're going to do things a little bit differently and maybe take the points. But we'll see. John Talty, college football writer for CBS Sports, joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. John, thanks so much for the time. How are you?
Good. Appreciate you having me on.
It is our pleasure. You wrote a piece, Something's Not Adding Up at LSU, and a lot of it was about the game on Saturday, and then some of it was about some of the deeper issues that may be in Baton Rouge. First of all, we'll start with the game. What did you see in LSU's razor-thin three-point win in Columbia against South Carolina?
I think they're very lucky to escape with a win, to be quite honest. I think that what Brian Kelly said after the game, I pretty much predicted word for word as I watched it. I knew he was going to talk about perseverance of the team and how it's hard to win on the road in the SEC, and all those things are true. And it was clearly an incredible environment in South Carolina, and finding a way to escape with a win is important. And there's definitely ways to build off of it. But I didn't feel like they were the better team in that game. I felt like they benefited from, quite a few either mishaps late by South Carolina, or I thought, questionable officiating calls. They had two pick sixes that didn't end up happening because of calls, especially the last one I thought was pretty questionable. So I thought they were very lucky to survive. And, you would hope that if you're LSU, that this is going to be used as a wake-up call, that, yeah, you're 2-1, but you really should be 1-2. And there's some pretty tough games ahead. But we'll see. I didn't think that there was outside of the final result, there were not a lot of things that I saw that made me super optimistic about the rest of their season, unless they can make some real changes and start figuring some things out sooner than later.
Why do you think that's the situation 2.5 years into Brian Kelly's tenure in Baton Rouge?
Well, I think staffing has been a big part of it. I think that, when you're constantly churning over your staff, I think that can be difficult to build momentum, to build consistency. The fact that he had to overhaul that defensive staff as quickly as he did is never typically a great sign. I think people around the program, he's done a really good job for this cycle leading into signing day in December. But I think in the past there's been some questions about whether he's recruiting at a high enough level. And then some people that I've talked to just think that there's a disconnect. They think that there's a disconnect between Brian Kelly and his style of coaching with this current team. That there just seems to be something off about it, that some of these guys are maybe not fully bought into what he's selling. That's what I've heard from multiple people kind of familiar with the situation. So, there's a couple of different ways of looking at it, but, you can just see, even with just the eye test, that this is not a team meeting its expectations for this season, and that there need to be things that are fixed. And, I do go to the defense and think that they spent a lot of money on overhauling that defensive staff, and watching them against South Carolina, to me, did not feel like it has taken a major step forward to this point.
Yeah, you wrote exactly what you just relayed there in your story at CBSSports.com. Said multiple industry sources familiar with LSU told CBS Sports on Saturday they believe they're the on-field issues a result of a disconnect between Kelly and his LSU players, with his personality and style not resonating as well in Baton Rouge as it did in South Bend. Is this a a guy from the Midwest who lived in the Northeast, grew up in the Northeast in South Louisiana? Is this a new era of transfer portal and NIL players? I mean, what's the deeper issue there that you think?
Yeah, I think it's all the above. I think that those things all factor in. I think that, people question the fit from day one. But there was another guy who came from the Midwest who ended up being pretty successful named Nick Saban. So I think people were willing to give him some of the benefit of the doubt. But, Notre Dame's a very unique institution. And LSU is a very unique institution as well in different ways. And so he was going to have to evolve and adapt for what he did to be successful at Notre Dame to work at LSU. Some of the people I've talked to don't think he has done enough of that, whether it's, the awkward kind of start with the accent to just where he's at now. They just don't feel like he's adapted to his surroundings as well as he could have. And I think that's part of one of the reasons why they're in the place that they're in. And it's been interesting too, there's different coaches that you get these reactions, but from talking to different people around college football, especially during that game on Saturday, just texting people that you currently work in the sport or tangentially related to the sport. And there's just not a lot of love for Brian Kelly. I don't know if it's his personality, the way he's rubbed people the wrong way, whatever it might be, but there are quite a few people that I would say are rooting for his downfall and just don't think that he is going to be able to turn it around at LSU. And so certainly something that bears watching moving forward as to whether, he can get this thing up to a level that we all expected it to be when they brought him in at a very high number and convinced him to leave Notre Dame for LSU.
I think the fear in Baton Rouge when you hire a coach that was Brian Kelly's age 3 years ago and you give him $100 million and a golden parachute there, that potentially you could see somebody lose a little bit of their edge and motivation. When speaking with people, do you believe that could be the case?
People have brought that up to me. People now, again, you're probably closer to the situation than I am. Like, I'm not there every day, obviously, so I couldn't clock it quite accurately. People have told me that he's not necessarily always in the office, and that he might take more days off than some of his predecessors, and Ed Ogeron less miles than Nick Saban did. So that's just what someone has told me. I can't identify that with my own eyes, but I do think that's always a question, and I think we saw it play out with Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M, the guy who LSU tried to hire. He didn't leave, and they ultimately got Brian Kelly instead. But I do think people around that situation told me that they felt like at one point he's just kind of collecting a check, and it takes a really, I think, special person to keep up their level of motivation when you're getting paid an insane amount of money, whether you're good or bad. Guys like Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, they're psychos in the best way in terms of their motivation's never going to drop just because of how much money they make. But I think it impacts a lot of people. And, that's what you're seeing, whether it's maybe at LSU, we're going to see a change in Florida here pretty soon. But like when that you're getting, 8-9 figures, if you win or lose, then, that can impact your motivation level. And I do think there are some people that think that maybe he's just not putting in the level of work that they were accustomed to with guys like Saban, Miles, and Ogeron, who were all extremely hardworking individuals.
We're chatting with John Talty. You can find him on Twitter at @JTalty, talking LSU and Brian Kelly. What does your magic ball say about what Brian Kelly's tenure at LSU will ultimately be?
I mean, he's got to figure some things out. I think it's already been kind of discussed ad nauseum, but I think looking back at last year and the offense that they had is going to feel like a really big what if he had maybe put together the right defensive staff from the beginning, or maybe made a move after year one. I mean, I'm watching the NFL yesterday and seeing, what Jaden and Malik and others are doing already as rookies. You just look back and think, man, how did that team not win the West? It was such a wide open West last year, and I didn't think Alabama was, nearly as strong as it's been in the past. So that to me is going to be the one that feels like it got away, and I just don't know if he's going to have a better opportunity than he had, last year. Given Texas is at a very high level, Tennessee is rolling right now, Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss. There's just a lot of programs that have elevated themselves up, I think, in the NIL era. That's made that path a little harder for LSU and for teams in general. And I just don't know that Brian Kelly is going to be able to figure it out. So if you put the expectation standard of national championship or bust, which we all know that the last three coaches have been able to do. I don't see that in my crystal ball right now for Brian Kelly. Certainly some big changes would have to pan out, and some of the highly regarded guys that they have currently committed to the class of 2025 would have to come in and make an impact, a big impact, pretty early on for that to even be remotely a possibility for where things stand right now for me.
He's John Talty, National College Sports Reporter, CBSSports.com. Got a piece up at CBSSports.com right now. What's the disconnect at LSU? We appreciate some time, man. Have a great week.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.